Welcome back, deep divers. We're diving deep today, folks. A little bit of a somber story, but fascinating nonetheless.
Yeah, it's a tough one, but definitely an important one.
Absolutely. We're going to tackle one of those mysteries that has haunted Philadelphia for, well, it feels like forever.
It really
The
has.
boy in the
A
box.
case that just stayed with people.
Yeah, you shared this incredible article from NBC 10 Philadelphia with me, and I gotta say, it's captivating stuff. We're going to break it all down together, every single detail.
Sounds good to me.
So, for anyone who might not be familiar with this case, and I'm sure most of our listeners are, but just in case, what exactly was the boy in the box mystery? Let's start there.
Well, going way back, February 1957, a young boy, probably about 4 years old, was found dead in a box, sadly.
Awful.
Just awful. In the Fox Chase neighborhood of Philadelphia, what really gripped everyone was that nobody could figure out who he was.
They couldn't identify him.
Nope. The police, the media, everyone tried. Yeah. For 65 years, his name remained a mystery.
65 years? That's almost unfathomable.
Yeah.
And the NBC 10 article, it reveals there's been a massive breakthrough recently, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's huge. Just a little before this article was published in January of 23, they finally cracked it. December 2022, they identified him.
Wow, that's incredible after all this time. So who was he?
His name was Joseph Augustus Zarelli.
Joseph Augustus Sorelli. To finally have a name, it's hard to put into words. So how did they, after all this time, how did they finally make the identification?
Science, man, science. DNA technology has come such a long way. Plus, the detectives never gave up, and the genealogical records, all those things came together.
I was reading about that genetic genealogy. It's like something out of a science fiction movie.
I know, right? It's mind-blowing. They use the DNA to find distant relatives in these giant databases. It's like putting together one of those huge family trees.
And that's how they got him.
That's how they got him. It's
Yeah.
the same tech they used to catch the Golden State Killer. It's amazing what they can do now.
It really is.
Yeah.
And speaking of amazing people, the article introduces us to Patty Braxton. How does she fit into all of this?
Her dad, Thomas Joseph Augustine, he was a Philadelphia detective who spent years, years, trying to solve this case.
Wow.
The crazy thing is, he died just 6 weeks before they finally identified Joseph.
Oh no, talk about bittersweet. To dedicate so much of your life to something and then...
I know, it's heartbreaking. They actually had a ceremony, a grave marker ceremony at Ivy Hill Cemetery.
I read about that on Joseph's 70th birthday.
Yeah, Patty and her sister Kim, along with other family members, they were there. It was like they were standing in for their dad, finally seeing this boy get a headstone with his actual name on it.
That must have been incredibly emotional. The article mentions some of Patty Braxton's reflections. What struck you about what she said?
She said her father would have been crushed to miss it. Just crushed to not be there after all that work. But she's also so grateful for everyone and everything that led to this moment.
It's like this case, it didn't just impact the victim, but it touched the lives of so many others, the investigators, the families, everyone.
Exactly. And even though we have a name now, the investigation isn't over, is it?
So what happens now?
Well, now it's about figuring out what happened to Joseph. How did he die?
Right.
The thing is, both his parents have passed away. So that makes things really difficult. It might not even be possible to arrest anyone at this point.
Oh, wow.
But he does have siblings who are still alive. Maybe they have some answers, some information about his life.
That's a glimmer of hope, at least. When you read about how Joseph's body was found, it's pretty disturbing, right?
Yeah, it's tough to even think about. He was naked, bruised all over, wrapped in a blanket. They found him in a J.C. Penney bassinet box.
Oh, my goodness.
And he was malnourished, had been beaten badly. It's just a horrible picture to imagine, a little boy who suffered so much.
I can't even imagine. I mean, they really did try back then, right, to identify him. I remember reading about the photos they circulated.
Oh yeah, they went all out. Newspapers, posters, even utility bills. They wanted to put a name to this little boy's face, but nothing worked. Back then, it was a different time, The resources, the technology, it just wasn't there.
It makes you appreciate how far we've come. So they know his name now. Any ideas about where he came from, like where he lived?
They're pretty sure he lived in West Philadelphia, which is interesting because that's miles away from where they found his body.
That is interesting. So who's this retired detective William Fleischer? The article mentions him quite a bit.
Well, he's got some interesting ties to this case. He grew up near where Joseph's paternal grandparents lived, in West Philly. And he even patrolled that same neighborhood when he was a cop.
Really?
Yeah. And get this, after he retired in '96, he joined the Vidocq Society. Those folks who volunteer their time to solve cold cases.
Yeah, they're amazing.
He's been fighting to get justice for the boy in the box for years.
It sounds like a very personal case for him. What does he say about finally uncovering the rest of Joseph's story? Why is it so important?
He's adamant about this, that we need to know what happened. Even if it's painful, we got to learn from the past, right? He even recited a Jewish prayer at Joseph's grave. It's clearly very deep for him.
Absolutely. We can't just sweep things under the rug. Have we heard anything from Joseph's family? His paternal side, I mean?
Understandably, they're keeping pretty quiet. It's got to be a lot to process, right? After all this time, to suddenly have this connection to such a tragic story, the police haven't said who Joseph's mother is yet or who was taking care of him.
It's like the identification is just the beginning.
Exactly.
Oh.
Whole new chapter. And speaking of new chapters, there's this whole online frenzy happening now.
What's going on online?
People, these internet sleuths, they're going crazy trying to piece together Joseph's life, his family, based on whatever little bits of information the police have released. It shows you the power of the internet these days.
It's like everyone's a detective now.
In a way, yeah. But it's important to let the professionals do their jobs too, Stick to the official information and all. What's Fleischer's take on all this? I mean, what does he say this identification means for Philadelphia?
Good question.
He calls it everybody's victory. This wasn't just some local thing,
Yeah.
The whole city, the police, even the country was captivated by this case. To finally solve it, after so long, it's closure for everyone.
And Patty and Kim, they have such a unique connection to this story as well.
Oh, absolutely. They grew up near where Joseph was buried
Yeah.
originally, in a potter's field.
Sure.
And they would visit his grave on holidays, bring flowers, say prayers.
Really?
Yeah, it became like a tradition for them.
It's amazing, isn't it? They even noticed the similarity between Joseph's full name, Joseph Augustus Zarelli, and their dad's name, Thomas Joseph Augustine. Like a little cosmic connection.
That's wild. Gives you chills, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So much to unpack in this story. I mean, what are your big takeaways after all this? Well, the biggest one, after 65 years, the boy in the box has his name back. Joseph Augustus Zarelli. That's what this is all about. It's a testament to science, to the
Yeah.
dedication of the investigators. It's incredible.
But even with the identification, we're not done, are we?
Oh, no, not at all. Now we got to figure out how he died, what really happened. It'll be tough, but hopefully his siblings can shed some light on his life, on the tragedy that took him from us.
And this whole story, it makes you think, doesn't it? I mean, the science, the genealogy, it's like something out of a movie. Who knows what other cold cases they'll crack next? And when they do, how do we as a society deal with those truths? Some of them might be hard to hear.
It's a heavy question, but an important one. This case forces us to think about identity, about family secrets, and about our responsibility to never forget the past, to always seek justice, no matter how long it takes.
Powerful words to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, folks, keep seeking the truth.